Well, this is John Black, Super Chemist, back here again. Hopefully this is still in a playlist called Slavery. Hopefully this will be the last video. If not, the next one will be. So let's see what we got here. Okay, because, yeah, now, the United States began in 1976. Let's see how, now the whole world, since the beginning of time, since the beginning of humans, have had slaves. It was so ingrained into people's psyche that no one even questioned it. You know, monasteries had them, Christian, Jews, and all the religious people were all the rich people. And all the rich people had slaves or whatever. Poor people didn't think slavery was right, but nobody questioned it because it was in the Bible, it was in the Quran, it was ingrained in this society, you know what I mean? And yet, even though all the gods say that slavery is okay, the United States was the first people, let's see, 1776, United States was formed. 1780, 4 years later, okay, only 4 years later, they started in PA. They didn't outright stop slavery, but slaves born are not slaves once they were adults. So meaning that after 1780, any slave that was born was only a slave until they were an adult, and then they were free. Then only 3 years later, now keep in mind this is after 100,000 years of having slaves, and you know the whole time of history of everyone in the whole world. Then only 3 years later, after that, Massachusetts outright outlaws slavery. Right? Only 1 year later, okay, 1784, Rhode Island and Connecticut abolished slavery. Right? Then the first. So in 1783, Massachusetts was literally the first country, okay, who in the whole world who stopped slavery and aborted it, because Massachusetts was a state. A state is a country, and then 1 year later, two more states or countries: Rhode Island and Connecticut. Then in 1804, Haiti was the first country that you wouldn't say was a state, you know what I mean? A country, but Haiti is really tiny. They abolished slavery, and in 1804, all of North America abolished slavery. All of the northern republics and all the northern states abolished it, okay? So that was 1804. What is that? That's 24, that's like 28 years later. 28 years after not a lifetime, a whole history, hundreds of thousands of years of slaves in the whole world. And then all of a sudden, it only takes 28 years and half the countries already abolished slavery, and they were the first. Now, in the UK, they didn't even abolish slavery until 1834. Okay, so they're behind the curve, right? And then in 1861, right, we had the Civil War, and in 1865, we freed the slaves. So 1865 and 1776, that's 100 years, man. That's actually less than 100 years. Or, wait a second. Yeah, that's less than 61. Yeah. So, anyways, it's 100 years, some give or take. After a whole life, the whole planet, everyone, even the religions, all the books, Bibles, Qurans, whatever, all saying slavery is good and blah, 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 blah. And we were like the forerunners. And then once we stopped it in our country, we went out, the United States and the UK, we took our Navy and went out and made sure that other people that were, the slavers that were shipping people to other countries and stuff, we stopped that, you know what I mean? Obviously, we didn't stamp out all slavery. There's slavery still today, you know what I mean? But we stamped out a lot of it, okay? and yet we don't get credit for that or anything. And it's always the white man's fault. And it's always the United States is evil. And I want you to think about the Civil War, okay? How could you have half the country, right, fighting, and not just fighting, but dying to free slaves? Because let's face it, I mean, yeah, there were black people that were joined, but most of them were white people. And then in the South, you might think, well, half the country wanted slavery. No, half the country did not want slavery. 75% of the people in the South were just tricked. They were tricked into thinking that it was about states' rights because they did a bunch of stuff that forced the federal government and the states people to fight over states' rights, and then they all made it about that. And so the poor man thought he was fighting for, states' rights, and being a rebel, and being darn them old federal prospectors or whatever what I mean, that type of thing. Because only 25% of the South actually had slaves. The other 75% were just poor people that were just like you or me, or everyday people or whatever. You know what I mean? And they were against slavery. You know what I mean? Most of them. Now racism, I'm going to get into racism here sooner or later. Racism is a totally different thing, okay? Like slavery, it was a big deal. The reason why I say it shouldn't be a big deal today or affect anyone's life is because it was so long ago. It's like ridiculous, okay? But racism is a totally different thing, but that's another video. It's another video series, if you go to my playlist. Did you know that, I want you to think about this. All the black people that are American citizens, black Americans, probably less than 50% of them, probably, I bet it's down like 30%. I can't remember. But there's it's not a big percentage of the blacks that even have ancestors that were slaves. Most, at least 50, slightly more than 50% of the black people in the United States, if not more. I think it's 70% of the black people. But I'll just say half of the black people, or slightly more. They migrated here after slavery. You know what I mean? The slavery only lasted 100 years, right? But after slavery, you got another 150, 160 years, or 160 years or something like that. So, I lost my train of thought, man. No, so most people aren't even descended from people that were slaves and that were black in the United States. That's the funny part. Like, more than 50% of the black people that are in this country, they did not descend from slaves. They came in after slavery. They can claim racism, but they cannot claim slavery, okay? And that's why reparations is stupid, because this goes back to the Bible. If you're a Christian, yeah, you probably do believe in reparations or whatever, because the Bible always wants to, you punish the son for the, misdeeds of the father. You punish the wife for the misdeeds of the father or the husband. It's always punishing innocent people that had nothing to do with it just because they're related. That's what reparations is like. You know what I mean? Like, nobody had slaves today. They're all dead. Nobody has been a slave for, they're all dead. So, you can't say, well, my dad or my grandfather or my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather owned your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And so I should be punished for it? I shouldn't even be punished for something my brother or my dad does. Why should I be punished for something that has a great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather? You know what I mean? That don't make any sense. But let's see here. And keep in mind, we have white slaves, a lot of white slaves in the United States, okay, during black slavery. You know what I mean? Um, Nobody cares. You know, when they were buying slaves, nobody was like, oh, well, I'm only going to take a certain colored slave. No, they could have been polka dot with stripes on them. They still would have taken them. A slave was a slave. And if you're a slave, you know, the type of person that's going to enslave someone, you're going to enslave whoever you can. You're not going to be particular about their skin color. And if you want to be honest about it, back in the day when they had slavery in the United States, the white slave was actually preferred over the black slave. But the trade for black slaves was just, there was, it shifted towards that or whatever, you know what I mean? But anyways, now I lost my train of thought again. Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. We enslaved white people from Ireland or whatever, and then the black people from Africa. We don't care, man. Whoever, if they didn't sell the black slaves in Africa, and they kept selling the white slaves in the UK and Ireland, there would be no black slavery. There would just be white slavery in the United States back in the day. You know what I mean? They would just buy all white. You know, it's crazy. Like every race enslaves other races and other whatever is the same rate, same amount. And I want you to think about the Civil War, man. More people, okay, and pretty much white people, died in the Civil War more than the World War II, okay, to fight Nazi Germany. More people died during the fighting for, you know, the civil rights, Civil War, than they did in World War II. Okay, take that. That's how much the United States was against slavery. That more people died to free the slaves than they did to get rid of Nazi Germany guy, Hitler. 100 years, or give or take 10 years, that we got rid of slavery. Like, it's like, come on, man. I mean, literally, I guess it was like 90 years or something like that. 90 years? That's all it took? 90 years. And hundreds of thousands of men died to free the slaves, you know what I mean? But anyways, so let's see what else we got here. Yeah, the poor. Oh, and, you know, where does the word slave comes from? It comes from the word Slavs. Slavs, slaves, and that's from Slovakia, Slovakia type countries or whatever, which were white. So the name slave comes from because of white slaves. Okay, literally the whitest people, you know what I mean, on the planet, from these Slovak areas. They are named slaves because of them, not because of black people, not because of Asian people, but because of white slavery. That's why we have the name slave, but it's all about black people. Yeah. But okay, so hopefully I'm almost done here. Now everyone descends from slavery, and everyone descends from a person who was a slaver. Okay, if you go back in the past long enough, you will, you'll find that you have been enslaved and you have been the slaver. You know, enslaved other people, because see, what people don't understand is, like, our ancestry, everybody descended from Africa. Okay, according to mitochondrial